Okay.
Hello, everybody. We are back on this technology thing, having another conversation. So, Tegan, I think we are a week and some number of days away from the kickoff event for the NADA conference, which means not next week, but the week after, these conversations are going to start to be in the Mighty Networks group. So, I want you guys to move over there. The big news, obviously, is that we've added another tier. So there's the guided coaching tier that we've talked about, but there's another tier to just attend the event and to be inside the community. So if you want direct help, then do the guided coaching level. If you want to get some of the guidance, we'll make sure that you have everything that you need to be able to do it yourself in terms of defining what your big thing is, knowing what the structure is, having some community support because you'll be able to be in the community. The only thing that you won't have is that guided coaching level, which obviously is a huge. I say that like that's a small thing, that's a big deal. But if you're the kind of person that either you financially can't justify getting direct help, or you're the kind of person who does better without that direct help, then you'll have that option available. So just go to lawyerforward.com/not a conference, and you'll get that information there. Today, Tegan, I wanted to talk about the post-apocalypse. So we
Mm.
are going to have a quick conversation about reprioritizing, and I wanted to get you guys' sense. So if you can join us and make comments about what you're seeing from clients in terms of, have they changed? Are their expectations different than they used to be? In terms of how you're adjusting, have you changed, or are you going back to business as usual? Does it feel healthier to go back to business as usual? People seem to want things to go back to normal. Is Are you good with normal? What changes are sticking? So we'll have a conversation about that. So anyway, yeah. How are you? Hi.
Hi, I'm good. It feels like it's been forever, but it's just been a week because you were on your what do we call it? A sabbatical. You were writing your manifesto
I know
and
somebody told
whatnot.
me. I think it was Jordan Furlong said it's really good that you prioritized vacation. I was like, that was not a vacation. As vacations go, that was the worst because I was just working the whole time. But yeah, I did take a week, and I had a couple of I'm about to start a big project, and I don't think it breaks any rules for me to say what it is. I'm co-writing a book with Kimball Parker from 650 about where essentially the argument is that legal technology is ready for the task for these companies. So it's us saying to companies like the world of the combination of expertise and technology is far enough along now that it's not a high risk, right, to go rely on these
Hmm.
resources. We're figuring this out, and so he wants to illustrate like what is the formula for that then. So if you're a hiring, it's what is the phrase? The future is coming, but it's not equally distributed or something. Um,
Yeah.
you got to be able to evaluate things, and so that's what Kimball's going to talk about: is how do we evaluate who's ready, who's not. So anyway, because we've got this big project about to happen, I had to clear the decks a little bit of old projects. So I worked on recording the audiobook version of Lawyer Forward and writing a piece for the other side of the company, the agency side of the company. So not a vacation.
Yeah. No, not at all.
Not a vacation.
Not at all. We just got to ignore you for a whole entire week. It was,
That's right.
interesting. Yeah.
It was revealing and sad in many ways. Yeah. So, speaking of getting back to the world, here's why I want to talk about this question of reprioritizing now after the pandemic. It's because of Jamie Oliver. Uh, and I am a fan of Jamie Oliver. I know that he bugs some people, but he's adorable. And he was actually trained to cook in Italy and actually cooks well. Like, he cooks
Mm.
Italian food well, which means something to me. So I went on Hulu. It was late night. I wanted something to watch. And I realized that he has a new show. So let me show you this new show. This is it. It's called Keep Cooking and Carry On. And Keep Cooking and Carry On is his argument was early in the pandemic, he pivoted, right? He was like, we're going to show you how to use what's in your pantry, right? The UK was really shut down. We were shut down, but the UK was really shut down. And he was like,
Yeah.
I'm going to adjust. I want to help you. I'm going to tell you how to use ingredients and that you have in your pantry and how to make adjustments and how to and look at this. I mean, you look at it, it's high production, it's edited. He's in a studio, there's good lighting, dude's got makeup on. So that's the beginning of the show, and I just have to show you within um, this is him in basically his basement. This was within a few episodes, like a couple episodes before this. You see him on a cell phone, no lighting, no makeup, in the morning. Kids are screaming in the background, and he's like looking at the ground, and he's like, "I lost my crew, and I can't see anyone, but I still want to help you." And then this episode, I show you this one because Jamie Oliver is making quesadillas. Like it's a whole conversation. He's making quesadillas. Like this was just fascinating to me because within just a few weeks, Jamie Oliver goes from I've got this high production thing to I'm making quesadillas. And this was so relatable to me to like we quickly went to what's good enough look like, right? and
Right.
and for a while we really prioritized, and he this was so bold to me because you see like his kids come in and out, right? You hear them screaming in the background, you hear animals, the sound is all wrong, the lighting's all wrong, and everybody was okay with it. There was nobody leaving reviews who were like, this sucks, dude. Like, why are you so late? Why can't you be a professional? Why does this suck so bad? Right?
Right.
None of that happened. And I guess and as an aside, the most relatable thing was his wife, actually, because you could see she's wandering around with a cell phone, tracking him, and sort of trying to be playful, but also realizing this man could snap at any minute, right? Like this could go sideways at any time. He desperately wants to help people. He doesn't know how to do it. He's feeling really out of control and out of power. And
Hmm.
here's this mom who's feeling the same way. Her
Sure.
name is Jules. She stays home with the kids, and she, at this point, was homeschooling. Like she was literally homeschooling everybody, as everybody was. And
Yeah.
she's probably barely keeping it together. She's got to keep this delicate man from just snapping.
Crumbling.
Right, because if he snaps, their whole family economics like totally change, and so she can't take a day off because he can't take a day off, and vice versa. And it was just so relatable. And I think the thing that sort of really um, that really made me think was, what are we doing now, right? Like now we see
Yeah.
people coming back into the world. So what are we doing now? So, any thoughts on that? Like how you sort of adjusted, and as now things are getting back to normal, what gets adjusted back? Do you feel self conscious about? I mean, I try to not make this a thing, but obviously, like, do you feel self conscious about having kids in the background and having to adjust to your life? Like, what are we getting? Do you feel like, I guess me in this specific instance, your clients are getting less and less patient with the old, with the adjusted phase?
It's interesting. I mean, I think I don't know, to be honest. Like, so before the pandemic, I was very, I mean, I have a kid as well, and mine's significantly younger than yours. So before the
Did
pandemic,
you
when I
just
would get
make
on
an
a
old
mute,
guy crack? Was that like a subtle?
no,
Wow.
no, just your kids are a little more responsible, but if you tell them to leave you alone, they actually leave you alone. I have like
Mm,
a 6-year-old who is like, I
right.
need fruit snacks yesterday, and
Yeah.
I'm just going to keep bothering you until I get them. Like, which is fine. But before the pandemic, I was very conscious of like, okay, I'm going to get him a whole bunch of snacks. I'm going to turn on a movie. He's going to sit right here while I talk to this client so he doesn't come wandering in. And then fast forward to the pandemic, and we're stuck in this house together. Like at the time I lived in California where everything was closed down, right? Like
Mm.
you couldn't go to you like you went to the grocery store or the pharmacy and that was it. Like if you were caught out after like 8 o'clock at night, they'd give you a ticket. Like we lived at home. And so my standards had to totally adjust and my clients got used to him just kind of popping
Right.
in and saying hi and having to take breaks. But now with this change back, it's been interesting. Like there are some clients that are still okay with the idea of being relaxed and
Yeah.
having my son come walking in. And then I have some that are very like, nope, we're back to business as usual. I expect you to be on this like higher level of
Right. And I
professionalism.
think
It's weird.
for legal clients, thinking about the people who are in this group,
Yeah.
the I've seen my wife and my kids work in at a cookie store. They work in a food service environment. So they work at Crumble, which are these massive. It's like the happiest place on earth. But
Such good cookies.
people are all over the world, all over the map in terms of how they're engaging. Some of them, they come in and they're like, "I'm just ready to be happy," and they're chill, and they're very understanding. And so when they're understaffed, they'll say to my wife, my wife will be sort of frazzled, and she's very transparent, and she'll say to people like, "Look, we're understaffed right now. We're moving as fast as we can. Can I get you?" She's being very humble and very open. And some people react to that with, "Well, you're losing a customer." I mean, like they're mad. And some people
Yeah.
react with, "Hey, we've all been there, man. We totally understand." And I watch I watch the NBA, and the playoffs are on, and they're allowing
Yeah.
some fans back, and there have been so many incidents of fans being idiots. I mean, just doing bad human stuff because they don't know how to get back into the world. And so I've been thinking about this, and I've been thinking about this with our event, right?
Yeah.
Because when we had talked about this event, and the trying to, I mean, it's really three things, right? It's like three different kinds of products all wrapped into one. And we had so many high expectations 4 months ago because we were thinking in that sort of pre-pandemic world in terms of expectations. And
Yeah.
now we're like, okay, well, now we got to get to the core of what this thing is and make it good enough, and we got to ship, and we're not going to have the dancing bears, and we're not going to have all the, all the things that we might have wanted. We're just not quite there yet. And how are people going to react to that, right? There's a lot of insecurity about that, and I sort of don't know. So what I wanted to talk about today was how to be purposeful about
Mm.
this. Like how to right now say, okay, I don't know. All right? Like I don't know how people are going to react, but here's what's true. Right? Here's what's going to be true for me. Here's what's going to be true for my business. Hell or high water, this is what's going to be true. And if we can be purposeful about that, as opposed to either thinking everything's changed and I got to change with it and it's chaotic and it's out of control, which I don't think is true,
Right.
or everything's got to just go back to normal because everybody just wants back to normal, which I also don't think is true. If we can be purposeful about this moment, I think that's probably and especially what to let go of. I think that to me that's the healthiest route, and that's the route that I want to take.
Yeah. I can totally understand that. And I think there on some level, I mean, working with my therapist through the pandemic because being a mom and teaching a kid, and I was not meant to be a teacher to tiny humans. Um, one thing that she taught me over and over again was you teach other people how to interact with you, like how to treat you, how to have those relationships with you. So I think even if we took that and we put it into a
Mm.
business perspective, moving forward, we can almost, I don't want to say train, but maybe train is the right word, train our clients or our customers like this is our new norm. This is how we want to do business. This is how we're going to be treated.
Mm.
Either, like we need you to adapt to this standard for us.
God, that's so true.
And
Yeah.
I wonder if like that's the best way to approach something like this is we can't go back to the old ways. It's just not going to happen. Other people have adjusted, but we can't continue to stay stuck in this like we live in little bubble pandemics either, right? Like
Yeah.
there has to be a happy medium. So maybe training or teaching our clients how we want them to treat us in our business is maybe the best road or solution here. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. That idea of you train your clients is so. What that means is if we're complaining, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
if we're the example of my wife in the cookie places. They've got people who can come into the store, and then they had these sort of curbside orders, and the curbside orders are either on or they're off. And when it's on, when it's available, people will choose that. And so they had cars sitting out, and it was all just a mess. And people were waiting for an hour, and they were super mad. And people were coming into the store in these crowds, and so they did a little bit of service design to train their customers, and they said, nope, we're allowing 4 people in the store at a time. We're going to have somebody at the door. That somebody at the door is going to sweetly, kindly talk to people. They engage outside
Mm,
to these people. They talk about the weather. They talk about cooking, whatever. And they pace people, and they changed the expectation setting, and
mm-hmm.
and now it's just normal waiting outside in a line for a cookie, as opposed to being a crowded store that made everybody inside panicked and they couldn't get things done and whatever. That they set the environment, and the same is true with you. As I always say, you are the only thing that's consistent about your business. So what I want to do
Right.
is, maybe this is helpful to you, is talk to you guys about my resolutions, the things that I've just decided are true. And it's all going to go back to, I'm going to make a call back to our last conversation, maybe the one before that, about the agency model that we had,
Mm-hmm.
and the things that Tim Conley and that I added to talked about in terms of things that you can prioritize for your business, being time, income, mobility, impact, and creativity. And you can design your firm, your business, around how you want to prioritize your time. How do you want to use your time? Make the business that does that, right? Your
Right.
income, figure out what your income is, what you want to pay your staff, right? And you and I think we talked about this early on. One of my key things is I want my staff to be above $75,000 a year. That is a goal of mine, because in the business design, and I want me to be paid enough, because I want to make sure that everybody in the company can get past that research-driven number of happiness. So that matters to me, and we're pushing for that. The mobility, right? So what do you care about in terms of your travel, your location, your ability to be with your kids at different times, your impact, what kind of legacy do you want to leave, or don't you, right? Is that
Yeah.
not a thing that you care about? And then your creativity. So if you go back to that episode, to that conversation, prioritizing those 5 things and sort of working backwards, we can talk about now the resolutions that I've come up with, maybe as a process for you to come up with your own.
Yeah. I mean, I think all of those are really important. And I think taking the time, even if you don't jump into the guided coaching, but at least take time to like evaluate your business and figure out which ones matter the most to you and which ones you're more flexible and having change or letting go.
Mm-hmm.
But knowing exactly what you want can kind of help you, like you were saying, like set these resolutions or set these bars that you can train your employees, your staff, you can train your clients to like respect those boundaries and move forward.
Mm.
So,
You saying that just reminded me of something that I think an analogy that I'll add after we talk about my resolutions
okay.
from my family law days. So I just want to talk real quick through some resolutions that I made,
Yeah.
and why these things were hard for me, but that they matter.
Mm,
And so the first one is I decided I'm going to hire for everything. I will hire, right? Which is
yeah.
really hard for me. That always made me fearful before. That always made me feel like, how do I feed those people? Now I'm taking this extra responsibility, but I don't take that responsibility. I think of it as math and as opportunity. And so for you, for Risha, for the rest of the team, like I'm creating scale and opportunity by having that idea that I'm just going to hire, and the oddest thing is that the money just seems to show up, which really brings me to the second resolution, which is I will charge enough. I need to charge
Yeah.
enough so that I can hire to fulfill these things. I think especially for legal clients, they don't. The only thing they know is that you're expensive. They don't know what the heck that means, right? They have no idea
Right.
what these things cost. What we do in our company for legal tech companies, they want to do content, but they have no idea what that means. So the
Right.
pricing is legitimately just completely up to us, and as long as we can justify it, as long as the market can take it, you know, charge enough. Charge enough to hire, because it shouldn't all be you.
Right. I think another thing to like keep in mind too with charging enough, a lot of people are afraid. I know in my like experience, they're afraid to charge what they feel like they're worth because they're afraid that they won't get the client to match what
Mm,
they're wanting to pay, right? Like they won't be able to find the clientele. But the crazy thing is when you start to set that bar for yourself, like this is how much I'm going to charge and I'm worth that much, you find the clients. There are people out there that are going to find you as valuable
right.
as you want.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid.
To your point about training clients, like what
Yeah.
you charge is the most significant piece of training that you're giving them, right?
Right.
You're they don't know what you're worth, so you tell them.
Right.
And with that, the next one that is also sort of a hard corollary for me, is that I will sell enough that
Mm.
to support that structure, I'm going to take selling seriously. And so that means in the structure of my business, and we as a team, you and I and Risha talked about this yesterday.
Yeah.
This company does not pay me to write things. It doesn't pay me to
No.
take out the trash. It doesn't pay me to do the billing. It doesn't pay. That's not what the company pays me for. I can do all of those things, but that's not actually what I get paid for. What I get paid for is going and creating business. I go and create customers. And so for me,
Mhm.
I had to resolve to sell enough and to take that seriously. And so that's important. Another one that is not true yet, that I'm definitely working on, is separating life and work. So, like right
Mm.
now, I'm still recording in the basement. You could probably hear my daughter's birds in the next room. You'll like kids could come in here and talk about whatever the freak at any time. I
Right.
have found over this last year that, like, I've done this for years. I've this thing of everybody like, oh my gosh, I'm working at home and the kids are so loud and blah blah blah. I've been doing that
Mm.
for 10 years, and even before that, when I was in school, right? Like I had kids when
Right.
I was in law school. I had kids when I was in undergrad. I have worked at home for, I don't know, 15 of the 20 years of our marriage, and I am effing tired of it. I'm just tired. Like I'm just tired of it. I'm
Yeah.
tired of. It's so hard to do anything other than labor when you don't have that separation of your work and your life. Like because you can't do deep work, what you can do is tasks. What you can do is
Hmm.
the churn. And that means that you get stuck in that task, that churning grind of tasks. And so
Right.
I made the decision to rent an office. I don't need to, right? That I don't have to go get an office to be able to do my job, but I do, and so I'm going to. And I think it's really important for everyone. The world is okay with you being more virtual. The world is okay with you working at home. I think it's important for you to decide whether you're okay with that or not, right?
Right.
Can you get deep work done? Can you get out of the churn if you don't draw that line? For me, the answer is no. And so I'm creating that space. And again, charging enough and selling enough and hiring enough to justify that.
Yeah. I think there's something to be said too about separating your work and life balance. Like I too have worked from home for 7 years. So I've had my little guy since he was a newborn up to where he's at now, all at home, working at home.
Right.
Um, but I think the other thing that happens is like you can't, at least for me, I don't know if this is true for everybody, but I can't like really get into something deeper or really work hard on something for longer than about an hour without
Right.
getting pulled away, or I'm hungry, I need lunch, or oh, we got to run to this doctor's appointment, or, so like it's hard to really be able to give my business the focus that it needs.
Right.
So trying to figure out that separation is probably really helpful.
Yeah, and we hired a maid a couple days ago, which is crazy.
Nice.
And like we know it is my wife is working at a cookie store. I mean, it is a grind
Yeah,
to
labor
create the
intensive.
revenue that she can then turn and say, let's hire a maid. So, and I think the maid might be making a higher hourly rate than she is, but she doesn't care because it's optimized for her, right?
Right,
So, in order to separate the life and work, it's okay to say I work so that I can pay for this life support, right? Whether
right,
it's, somebody taking care of your kid in the afternoon, whether it's somebody cleaning up for you, whether it's somebody cooking meals. You can literally go on Craigslist and find somebody. The restaurant industry has been so screwed for so long that you can find a genuine cook, if not chef, to make meals for you once a week in a way that you can like do those things. Um,
right,
and you can do it because you're not going to blend the life and work to because that's really inefficient. It's like you can't do high value work. You can only do tasks in that scenario. So focus
right.
on the high value work so that you can charge enough to then get support. The other thing that I really want to pay attention to is leaving, is like taking time off, is going places. And I don't just mean for me, I mean for you guys too, right?
Yeah,
Like redundancies have to exist, and in the design of your business make sure that you create space by making it so Risha does this list of things, and if Risha's gone, Tegan can step in with X, Y, and Z, and A, B, and C can wait, or whatever the support systems are. Make sure that you have support structures. A friend of mine this week asked, what happens if you're gone for 2 weeks? Would your staff know what to do? How would they figure it out? Would the business just fall apart? And I said, no, I think they would figure it out. And he said, even for the show that you host, like shows that you host, what would you do? I said, I think they would just go find guest hosts. He said, there's your solution, right? Like you gotta figure out those kinds of I'm gone, Tegan's gone, Risha's gone, whoever's gone. What are the redundancies that make that work? Optimize for
right,
leaving.
right. And it gives you that, I think optimizing for leaving too also gives you, to play back into it, separating life and work, because then you can actually like pull yourself out of it and go be present with your family or go travel or whatever it might be. It gives you that opportunity to leave without knowing, hey, my business isn't going to completely crumble if I walk away.
Right. And I mean there are others, and we could talk about those. I mean I'm trying to prioritize empowerment, like making it so you guys feel like you can make decisions.
Yeah.
Being actively patient, and by that I mean being patient but doing the work, and then just drawing the line and saying if there's a toxic relationship, I'm cutting it out, and I'm being vicious about it. I just don't care. These are decisions, and here's the analogy that you made me think of is when people would come
Mm.
in for divorce, they would say, "Should I get divorced? Should I go get
Okay.
divorced?" Because they didn't know how to think through that process. And it sounds like my daughter's birds are all awake now. So sorry for the screaming. Give it a week, I'll be somewhere else. But people would come in and say that, and I would always say, I feel like you're at the place. You know how in high school you would decide
Mm.
you will have decided I'm going to break up with this guy in your case. Well, I decided we're going to break up, but I don't have the cojones to do it. And so now I'm just irritated with this person. And things start to irritate you. Like you start to be annoyed with the way they breathe or the way they
Yeah.
chew or things that have been true this whole time because you've decided you're going to halfway, maybe I break up, maybe I don't. And so I would always say to people, you got to realize that you're at the point where you're being irrational about your expectations for that person. because you're
Yeah.
so invested, you're so far along in your mind of I'm done with this person. So either be done or make a deal breaker list. And what I would always say to people, and we had to do this in my marriage,
Mm.
we had to decide, here's the list, make it short, make it shared. Here's the list of things that are just killers. If this happens, I'm out.
Non-negotiables.
Right.
Yeah.
If this happens, I'm out. If this happens, I'm out. But for that to work, the list has to be really short. It has to be known, and you have to let go of literally everything else. Everything else the other person does, you have to say, that's okay, that's not on the list. Like, what, that, it's gone. Like, my expectations are zero. And I remember having to do that in my marriage during law school. Had to get to the point where I was like, I have zero expectations except for these very few things. And my wife, it made her feel so trusted at that point that she actually started doing all of those things better that were annoying me before. And same with me. Like we became closer and more invested in each other. And I guess what I'm saying is do the same thing with your business. Make a
Mm.
deal breaker list. Make it really short. Make it known, and then pivot with everything else. Just be patient with everything else. Be cool with everything else. It's not going to be perfect. The production that you have, the things that you do, they're not going to be perfect. It's okay. Give yourself that space, but have a deal breaker list and say, I'm going to nail these things, right? These things are going to be true, and if they're not, I'm divorcing this business. So,
Yeah.
we have other things that we could
Mm.
talk about service design, about some of the supply chain competencies, but we'll talk about those things in the NADA conference group over the next quarter. So I would encourage you guys to go to lawyerforward.com/NADA conference. Like we talked about, we've got whatever, little less than 2
I'm
weeks.
like, let me find out.
Right.
Hold on a second
before
here.
before we're starting with that. So go to lawyerforward.com slash
That's cool.
NADA conference, and at minimum, sign up for the conference side. What we're doing for the conference is largely trying to give you ideas of things you can do in your business. So we'll have a bunch of guests on who will say, I tried YouTube. Here's YouTube basics. If this is a thing you want to do, here's the rabbit hole. Here's things that you can go do tomorrow to get quick wins. And that's the structure of these conversations is here's a bit,
Yeah.
it's sort of like a TED Talk interview. Here's a big
Yeah.
idea. If you want to roll with it, here it is. So at minimum, join that. We'll hope to inspire you with cool ideas, with cool things that you can do. Tegan and I will be around again next week here.
Yep.
And then after that, we'll be in the Mighty Networks group. So go there.
Right.
Thank you, Tegan. Anything else
No, I
that I
mean,
forgot?
not that I can think of. Go Jazz, I guess. They won last night. That's exciting.
I'm like the only Jazz fan in the Midwest, and the way that I deal with my late night fandom, because I yell at the TV, and so Nicole doesn't want me to be around, and so
Mm.
I've decided I will walk. So I put on my walking shoes, and I do a
Mm.
round around our neighborhood, listening to the radio call of the game, and I found that as long as I keep walking, we win. And so I think yesterday I walked like 6 miles, 7 miles, and my feet hurt, but we just keep winning. And so that's what
I
matters.
mean, we won
Science.
yesterday,
It's called
so
science.
science right there.
Thank you, Tegan. Thank you,
Yep.
guys. Prioritize yourselves, prioritize your life, do the business work. It will feed you if
Yeah.
you treat it right. We'll see you guys next week.
Yep.
Thanks.